Enterprise, a partnership between my company, Digital Venture Partners, and Black Enterprise, where every week we have a conversation with a Black or brown entrepreneur or executive within the cannabis space that I respect and I feel like is building out their brand and exemplifying what Black entrepreneurship should look like in cannabis. Today we have Marvin Washington, the 11-year NFL veteran and co-founder and CEO of Isosport. So I'm happy to have you on, sir. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, no problem. My first question I would love to kind of jump into is you had a long storied career in the NFL, and now you're on like the second half of your career transitioning into business, and more specifically, an industry that's still very young within that is CBD. What's that process of you reestablishing yourself as an entrepreneur outside of your history as an athlete?
Well, I've been retired. I haven't played a football game in this fall will be 20 years, So once I retired from football, I went into the financial service industry with, boutique farms and the biggest farm, the big house I was with was with Merrill Lynch. And then I went to boutique farms and I discovered and had some success there. And I discovered cannabis about 6 years ago with CBD, THC. And it was an emerging market, and I saw the famous line Willie Horton said way back when, "Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is." I went into this industry because I saw the potential for growth and the potential to help people, particularly people in our community. We participated in cannabis when it was in the black market. Now that it's in the green market, I want to make sure that our people are educated, know about this medicine, that it's gonna gross $13, $14 billion this year. And that's bigger than the NFL, and it's just gonna keep growing. And I wanna educate our people about getting into this and getting rid of their negative connotations and negative thoughts that they've been taught about this plant.
Okay, and that leads me into another more specific question I would love to ask you. A lot of people from the outside looking in don't really know the difference between traditional cannabis and CBD, which is what your company specializes in at the moment. What do you say to the person who's like, what is CBD and how is that different from weed?
Well, I want to say, the short answer is THC gets you high and CBD gets you healthy, but there are medicinal benefits to both of them. And so CBD is just a cannabinoid out of the cannabis plant. It's non-psychotropic, doesn't get you high, doesn't get you stoned, but it has all these medicinal benefits for anxiety, for pain, for anti-inflammatory, for relaxation, for focus. And there's so many different delivery systems that you can put CBD in, because a lot of people, they may not be comfortable with it, smoking it or vaping it. So my company, we have coffee, teas, water, gummies, pain cream, tablets, what have you, and just showing people how you can take CBD by these different methods. And so we combine it with the other things like turmeric and glucosamine and chondroitin and all these things that have shown them to have medicinal benefits. And we put CBD in there, and it seems to be working, for, the people that we give it to, because it's plant-based. And for thousands of years, we medicated with plant-based medicine. That's where you're talking about with, particularly in Africa and Egypt and places like that. It's been plant-based medicine. The American Indians, plant-based medicine. Chinese people, plant-based medicine and herbs. So we're getting back to that and getting off these opiates and pharmaceuticals that they've been killing us with for the last 80 years.
So I saw that the NBA, the MLB, and I believe the NFL have all deregulated cannabis use for its players. And I think it's a healthier alternative to use, cannabis or CBD products as opposed to, let's say, opioids, which is something that we've seen to be pretty consequential for users.
Well, it is consequential for users, because I'll tell you this, for NFL players, former NFL players. There's 20,000 former NFL players, and we're 4 times as more likely to abuse opiates than general society because we're introduced to them. You know, and for acute pain, if you have a broken finger or something like that, you're going to take some pain pills, but you're not supposed to take them from July all the way to January or February. Now, if you extrapolate that over 10, 11-year career like mine, and then you expect the guy to walk out the door and cut him off, a lot of guys can't do that. So I've been banging on the NFL and the NFLPA, that's the players' unions, to get them to look at this natural, non-addictive, non-toxic plant for the players that can do some of the same things that these opiates can do for them. And so I was happy that the NFL took it off. The players still can't use it, but you're not going to get suspended. You're not going to get these and lose game checks over it, lose millions of dollars just because you want to medicate with the plant. Somebody like Ricky Williams, you know, he's a father to me of cannabis and athletes, and all he wanted to do was medicate with something natural. I think the best ability that a player has is availability. But how to be available is to be healthy. And I think this plant is going to go a long way, whether it's basketball, whether it's hockey, whether it's football, whether it's UFC, whatever, of something natural to where no negative side effects, something that's not going to affect you for the rest of your life. I think this is the wave of the future. And I would say within 5 or 10 years, all leagues are going to allow their players to use cannabis, CBD, and it's going to be regulated just like the opiates that they do now by the team doctors and the team trainers. This is just the way to go, man, because this plant has been put here for us to use, and it's about time that we start using it.
Forward over to something else that I found interesting in your story. You have a historic lawsuit versus the Department of Justice and William Barr right now. Could you speak on kind of how that's laid out and what you want to accomplish in this conflict?
Well, we want to legalize cannabis. That was a lawsuit that we filed in 2017, and it got a lot of attention because it was Sessions versus Washington and Sessions and the DOJ versus Washington. And we want to legalize cannabis for a number of reasons. And I'm the lead complainant, but we have soldiers who are part of the lawsuit. We have kids that have the extractable epileptic strokes and seizures that can't use it, but it's helping them. Can't use it on the federal ground, can't travel and what have you. And we've gone through district court, and the first time ever, district court said cannabis has medicinal benefits, despite the government having it on the Schedule 1 with heroin and LSD and all this. And right now, we're at the point where we're appealing to the Supreme Court, because in order for your case to be heard with the Supreme Court, you have to appeal to them. So now we're getting an amicus brief, which is friends of the court, showing the court that it's just not me and the other 4 complainants. So we got a bunch of different groups and individuals, from Hall of Famers to, you know, we have some pretty good groups and people in there. And the reason why I joined the lawsuit is in 1970, when Richard Nixon, he did this himself, put it on the Controlled Substance Act of cannabis. He wanted to go after 2 different groups. He wanted to go after African Americans, and he wanted to go after the counterculture people of the 60s and early 70s that were protesting the Vietnam War. So once it became illegal, you know, they couldn't just go after the hippies and the black people just outright. So they had to figure out a way to do it, to make cannabis illegal. So once they did that, the prison population, particularly for African Americans, went from like 40,000 to 300,000 in 1972. That started the war on drugs in earnest, and it mostly targeted us, because we're still 3 to 13 times more, depends on where you are in the country, to get arrested for cannabis, even though we use it the same way as Caucasian people. You know, so the hippies, you know, they went from tie-dye to suit and tie and assimilated into the community and still smoking cannabis. I can't change my color. We can't change our color. So we're on the war on drugs with the prison incarceration, the arrest, incarceration, prison industrial system, breaking up of families and whatever. So I want to put an end to that, you know, because this has gone on long enough. And Richard Nixon actually knew that cannabis wasn't a gateway drug. It wasn't addictive. It had medicinal benefits because he commissioned this report called the Schaefer Report. And it was said the same thing in 1970 that we all know about cannabis now. But he wanted to go after these groups. So the bill was written, passed through both houses, and signed by him in like 3 weeks. In 3 weeks. And so he wanted to come after us, and then Reagan came on with his war on drugs. Now we got another guy that's doing it. It's time to stop it. So let's go to the highest court in the land and decide it. I know it's a conservative court, but the ACA came out of that. The Marriage Equality Act came out of that. The Dreamers got their rights affirmed coming out of this conservative court. So let's see if we can take a shot and finally get this thing right, a 80-year wrong, and move to the future, move to the 21st century, and get with plant-based medicine. There's 287 different cannabinoids in this plant. We only know about, THC and CBD mostly. Let's get them all out there, and I guarantee you, we're going to get away from this opiates and pharmaceuticals, because if you go into your older relative's house and go into their bedroom and go over their nightstand, what do you see? All these medicines. We need to get away from that. We need to get away from that, particularly with the African American community. We need to get away from that. So it can benefit the African American community in two ways: medicinally and economically. With the tax dollars and the revenue that comes from this, we can regenerate our own neighborhoods and won't have to worry about that. Whether you use cannabis or not, let's put these tax dollars back in our community.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wholeheartedly agree. I would also love to get your, or do you have anything that you would want to see out of this current 2020 election? I know out of the other Democratic
besides Trump leaving.
Yeah, Trump losing is that's the number one priority. But with Joe Biden, he seemed to be kind of skeptical on really speaking on cannabis legalization. I know he mentioned that he wanted to decriminalize it, but it's a lot less progressive than other candidates. So moving forward, do you think there are any other responsibilities you would like to see, maybe Joe Biden mention about what he wants to do for cannabis in our societies?
I think he's moved a little bit. He is for decriminalization or whatever, but he needs to move some more. And I think once he gets into office and he has people, if the Democrats take the Senate too, then you have the House and the Senate, and you'll have some pro-cannabis people that have already have their cannabis bill, ready to go. And I think that will have influence with Joe Biden, particularly African Americans. If you got Cory Booker and Kamala Harris and people of that nature coming to him and telling him and bringing him up to speed and showing, we're running this $1 trillion deficit. This can cut it down. You know what I'm saying? This can bring so much money to the communities of this country that it's something that it's a smart way to go. It needs to go that way. And he can be remembered as the guy who legalized cannabis, or we're going to do it through the courts. But he needs to get up to it, because I think Joe Biden is still going on. I don't blame him, but he's a 78-year-old white guy, so he grew up with cannabis as a gateway drug. It's this, it's that, but it's not like that. And so hopefully he's going to listen. And if it doesn't come from the executive office, let it come from the court.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually hopeful that, since it seems as though he'll have to select a Black woman as his VP, hopefully someone like Kamala, who is really vocal about how she wanted to transform cannabis. I'm hoping his VP candidate will kind of be the person that takes that initiative. And I think that way Biden can stay a little bit more moderate, which is where I think he wants to occupy right now, to kind of steal some of the dissatisfied Republican voters, but we can also still get that cannabis legislation through his vice presidential pick. That's what I'm hopeful for, at least.
No, I'm hopeful too. Biden, I hope he is a moderate that's leaning left, because when they get into office, they don't try to be moderates. They go hard right. So let us go hard right on some things. And one of the things that we should go hard right on is cannabis. And regulate it and tax it like you do liquor and you do tobacco. But this is going to be bigger than all this. If you look at cannabis and hemp, our Constitution was written on hemp. All the founding fathers were hemp farmers, and they had slaves too, but they were hemp farmers, and the Navy and the mast and the ropes were all built with hemp. It's sustainable. It has no environmental footprint. Let's get behind this. We can change this country and go into the 21st century. We haven't had a revolution since the 60s. I know the tech revolution, but that really wasn't for us. It was for, for white males. But let's do this, get it, and we can do not business as usual. We can do a better business and making sure that the playing field was level for everybody, and get in this, man, and take advantage of this plant that the Creator has put on this planet for our benefit.
Right, and I agree, and I also think there's a mass underrepresentation of us in this industry, which leads me to my next question. What do you say to someone who says, Marvin, I want to get into cannabis, I want to get into CBD. How do I transition my talents into the space? What answer do you normally give to that question?
Well, talent. Bring your talent. Don't worry about experience. Bring your talent. If your talent is in designing, bring that. If it's in accounting, bring that. If it's, if your truck driver, bring that talent, because there's a way. Cannabis, we're not an industry yet because we're not federally regulated, but we're going to be. And so bring whatever skill that you have in corporate America, bring it over here, and it's going to benefit this industry and the space, because like I said, we participated in the rest and whatever, and right now we're only about 4%. We're not going to do business as usual. We're going to do a better business. We need to get in here, and I'm trying to bring in everybody that I can. Bring everything that you can from corporate, bring it over here, because we need smart people, and we're not looking for set-asides or whatever. We just want a level playing field that we can get in here and participate in this. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping that, if it becomes legal, there is going to be a bill in there that addresses the people that were affected most by the prohibition of cannabis, which are the black and brown people, particularly black people, that we can get into this business. Whether you have a nonviolent felony for cannabis, we're gonna open up the prisons for everybody that's locked up for cannabis and expunge their records and show them how they can work in this business. We're going to bring in African American women and men and teach them, like, this is not a drug, this is medicine, and this medicine needs to be in our community, and it will make our community better, because we don't want any interlopers or coming into our community, open up the store from 9 to 5, and then at 5 o'clock going home. No, we want those dollars to stay in our community. And that's what I see cannabis doing. And I can see us having a representation in cannabis more than any other sector in the country right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to your point, the black dollar stays in our neighborhood the shortest amount of time and relative to any other community, right? I think it's like on average, the black dollar stays in our community maybe for like an hour, because the only real industry that we own right now are, barbershops and beauty salons. Outside of that, you pretty much have to go across.
I don't even know if we own beauty salons. I was telling my daughter that the other day, man. We need to get some black-owned beauty salons and beauty supplies.
Yeah, we definitely don't own the beauty supplies.
I would love to see that. That might be when I retire from cannabis in a few years. I might be doing some beauty supplies.
No, I'm right there with you. I think it's a vast underrepresentation of black women in beauty and cosmetics. I think that's another issue that needs to be addressed.
But we use it, but we spend a lot on it. We spend a lot. So we're going to get there, man. We're going to get there. And I think, this pandemic and with the president that we have and the things that are happening, I think it's brought attention to things that the black community and the minority community has been complaining about a long time, that have not been equal, and giving us a fair shot at, this American dream and achieving it. But I think right now it's a conversation to have, and we're having it, and I think it's going to be a change for the better. So I'm hopeful for the future. I'm gonna be, pushing up Daisy and be dead and gone
Mhm.
probably when it happens. But I think it's gonna happen for my kids and my grandkids.
Okay, that's great. And the transition a little bit more into business and business development. Your company, Isosport, I love to see a very thoughtful CBD brand, because I think during the CBD rush, a lot of people just began white labeling and selling products that were not tested, that were not vetted, that were not researched. So I would love to get for you to give us a little bit of backstory on Isosport and kind of what goes into the brand and where we can find you in national retailers.
Well, I did a joint venture with a company called Isodow. It's a publicly traded company, and they already had coffee and some other brands in there. And so I did a joint venture with them to come up with a sports branded line for athletes, weekend warriors, and people that have an active lifestyle. And so we got 9 different products in there, from a pain cream to a tincture um, to tablets and a daily vitamin and what have you. And it's branded right because we are Isodow was one of the first companies to come out with this, one of the first companies that isolate the CBD from the cannabis plant and bring it back with other ingredients. And we started out as bulk manufacturer, then we went to white labeling, and then we started making our own brands. And I was one of the first brands in there. And that was in 2016. And we've made some progress to where we're in 470 vitamin shops. We're in public grocery stores down in Florida, Giants in the Northwest, and we got a nice online presence if everybody wants to go to it, isosport.com. And so we're getting through this pandemic because I say vitamin shop, but I think that the wave of the future is going to be direct to consumer and e-commerce. So we're definitely revamping our things to that. But it's a way to me where if you're a former athlete, an NFL guy, and I know you, I don't even charge you. I just send you the stuff. You know what I'm saying? So you use it because I know the pains that you're going through, my family and friends, because I want to introduce everybody to CBD, particularly the African American community, because they have a lot of trepidation around the plant, because they've seen us be arrested, they've seen families being broken up and whatever. So I want to kind of change the mindset of that and show them that's a positive thing. It's medicine. You've been lied to. And so that's, you know, co-founder of that, sit on the board of that. Montel Williams has a THC company called Limited Labs. I'm one of the initial investors in that company, and I sit on that board. Bud Trader is the largest online marketplace for cannabis transactions, like the Craigslist of cannabis. I sit on that board. Uh, Can Chew Gum is a CBD gum. I sit on that
You're a
board.
busy
So
man.
I come in like as an entrepreneur, and as an equal partner, because I don't want to just be a spokesman. Because when your ship takes off and the tide comes in and your ship goes off, I want my ship to leave the dock too. So you're not just going to have me as an entertainer or spokesman. And so that's what I try to tell everybody, particularly the athletes, particularly African Americans, get part of that company, because most of them are starting out and starting out small. So get your piece of it. So when their boat comes, when the tide comes in and their boat rises up, yours rises up with it. Don't be left at the dock, man. And so this thing is $13 billion this year, $14 billion. By 2025, it'll probably be 30 billion. There's room for growth. It's an emerging market. It's still young. When you look at like Oregon and Colorado became legal in 2012, that was 8 years ago. That's like the Wright brothers taking off a Kitty Hawk. So in this industry, there's plenty of room for growth, because we're not even in the twin propeller age. We're not even in the jet age. Can you imagine in 10 and 20 years? That's why I said, get in, man. Get in and get in. I got in as an entrepreneur, but if you're an accountant, if you're an attorney, if you're artistically inclined to draw to do brands or what have you, if you want to open up a dispensary, there's room for you. And you can find me on social media at mwash52 on Twitter and Instagram or what have you. I help out everybody that I can. I help out everybody that I can.
And I tell people, it's going to happen with or without us, and I think
It's going to
a
happen
lot of
with or
people feel
without
like
us.
since I'm not paying attention to it, it's not happening. But it's like, this is an industry that is building itself day after day. You see the legislation changing, you see the conversation. It only makes sense to come in early and figure out a way where you can really benefit from the industry also.
Because nobody's going to, once this thing takes off, nobody's going to be sharing their profits. You know what I'm saying? That's just human nature. Nobody's going to be sharing their profits with you. Get in, man, learn about it. Be around, start a group, whatever state you're in, whether it's, you got 38 states right now that are either medicinally or recreational or adult use. And pretty soon you're going to have all 50 states. Don't be sitting there flat footed, when it comes. Be ready for it to come. Learn about this plant, whether you don't smoke. I don't smoke tea. I don't smoke weed. I don't smoke cannabis or whatever. But I'm in this industry. I'm in this industry because I want to help people, which I'm doing. And plus, there's a big profit margin, so I'm in there too.